So now before we dive into the discussion today, I would like you all to take a moment, to pause for a moment and think about the strongest person you know, irrespective of gender. And ask yourself what makes them strong. Is it their gender or something else entirely? Now imagine a world where your gender doesn't determine the quality of your strength and weaknesses. Ask yourself, why should that world just be in our imaginations? Unfortunately, that world is still in our imaginations because in this world, a woman's worth, her strengths, her weaknesses are still being measured against that of a man's. Now, a few years back, I came across a story of two remarkable sisters from a small town in Uttar Pradesh. Their story, a stark reminder of a world where women still have to struggle to be accepted for who they are. So the story goes like this. When their father fell ill in 2014, the family was forced to close their barbershop. But this shop was also their only source of income. The sisters tried to run the shop, but the customers refused to be serviced by young women. Not surprising, right? They also had to fight off inappropriate behavior from male customers. So the sisters, they did not give up. They hit upon a plan. They transformed their appearance. They cut their hair short and dressed up as boys. They started calling themselves Deepak and Raju. They maintained this disguise for 4 years, running the shop successfully and earning enough to support their family as well as pay for their father's treatment. Now think for a moment that we live in a world where Jyoti and Neha had to become Deepak and Raju to run a shop that was owned by their family. They had to disguise themselves as boys to earn a living. They had to dress up as boys to escape being harassed while they were just doing their jobs. Jyoti and Neha's experience actually goes beyond the cultural taboo of girls running a barbershop. It underscores a very important issue: the constant need for women to adapt and fit into a world built by and for men. For me, the sister story is also a commentary on how women are still expected to hide their differences or their differential needs to be considered competent, or how they have to mirror the experiences of a man to be celebrated. Jyoti and Neha were celebrated for proving that they were capable as boys. They never got the chance to prove their worth and capabilities as girls. Of all the injustices women face in this world, this is the very worst, that our worth is predetermined. We often find ourselves describing strong women with phrases like a man, just like a boy, or no less than a man. This is how, both consciously and unconsciously, we tend to measure a woman's strength by comparing her to a man. It reveals a subconscious benchmark that we have set for strength, and that's inherently male-centric. Sure, men are also often compared to women. Don't cry like a woman. Are you a scared little girl? Be a man. Don't whine like a woman. So while for women the subtext is be like a man, for men the subtext is always don't be like a woman. Even though women are forever being celebrated for their resilience and courage, have you ever heard anyone say, you are strong like a woman, you are resilient like a woman, you are indomitable like a woman? Because like a woman is a slur. while like a man is congratulatory. This is how gender biases have infiltrated the way we think, and it reflects in everything we do as individuals in families or workers and employers in the workplaces. This is why it's time to change the narrative. To begin with, let's redefine strength. Let's take gender out of it. Being strong doesn't mean fitting into the shoes of a man by killing our own attributes or hiding our differential needs. It doesn't mean diminishing ourselves to squeeze into male-dominated spaces. Being strong means demanding equal treatment on the basis of our differential needs. We do not need to mold our daughters to be the sons of the house. We do not need them to work like men in the office. We do not need to prepare them to conquer a man's world or to cater to rules set by men. Instead, we need to prepare them to stand strong in demanding differential treatment because, yes, we are different, but that doesn't mean that we are anything less. The benchmark for a woman's commitment and professional competence should not be how closely she can mirror a man's experience. We need to create gender-responsive workplaces, but not just in terms of facilities, also in terms of a culture change, a broader culture change. Organizations will have to consciously work to create a gender-responsive environment and set equal benchmarks for achievements for a diverse group of people. We need to foster an environment where women feel empowered to openly discuss and embrace all aspects of their womanhood without fear of stigma or professional repercussions. But where do we even start? It's a question I've often confronted myself, and the only answer I have come up with till now is that let's stop calling this a man's world. This is not a man's world. It is a masculine world that has been historically dominated by men. So let's take a little, detour and talk about why historically men have dominated this world. It goes way back to early human societies where everything was about survival. Men usually did the heavy duty stuff, the hunting and protecting, not because they were stronger, but because they couldn't really do the real heavy duty stuff, which was giving birth to babies. Women did that, and they stayed with the babies and they looked after the household. This was a very practical division of labor. But over time, the setup turned into a kind of unwritten rule about who does what in society. The world became a man's world. Men ended up making the big decisions, owning land and running governments, while women were pushed into caregiving. It's been a long journey, and since then, it is pretty much stuck in the way we think about men and women and who holds the power and who doesn't. So don't call this a man's world. The more we call this a man's world, the more we validate the underlying message that women and other genders have to adapt to this world. Let's take a recent example. The whole debate surrounding menstrual or period leave. So many women are against it because in a man's world, being a woman is being weak, especially if you accept the differences that have been given to us by lieu of our gender. Do we become less of professionals by accepting that we are women and yes, we bleed every month and that some of us are unable to bear with the excruciating pain that accompanies it? How can taking a few days off a month because of a legit medical reason specific to my gender cancel my achievements for the rest of the 30 days? And yet, that is how it is. There is an urgent need to cancel such a bias system that has been built by gaslighting women into believing they are the weaker sex just because of our biological differences. Being different is not being weak, and we can normalize this only when we stand up and own our differences. And men have an equally important role to play in this. Men are victims of this system too. Just imagine being still stuck in a hunting gathering role. It's 2024, guys. Wake up, challenge the narrative. It's not going to help anyone in the long run. Let me digress a little bit. Let me give you a food analogy. Everyone likes that, right? When we're cooking, say for example, matar paneer or chicken with potatoes, do we try and make the paneer or the chicken adapt to being a potato or peas to fit into the curry? No, right? Those different ingredients bring their own individual flavors for the dish to come together. Let me reiterate again. Women don't need to fit in a man's world because the concept only exists in our indoctrinated brains. There is a world and then there are men, women, and other genders who inhabit it in their own unique ways. In fact, if you want to go a little bit more technical, then I would call this a woman's world. Why? Because we are all born female. Let me explain. We're all born female for the first 7 weeks. Every fetus in a mother's womb is female. When we are just tiny things beginning to grow inside our moms, we all kind of start on the same path. For the first few weeks, it doesn't matter if you're going to be a boy or a girl eventually, but for the first few weeks, we all have this default female setting. Now here's where it gets interesting. If the fetus has a Y chromosome, then within the next 6 to 7 weeks, the gene starts building male attributes and characteristics. So technically, we are all born women. What? Do you see where I'm going with this? In the grand curry of humanity, every ingredient, every person has a vital role to play, contributing to the diversity and the richness of our collective human experience. When I was 6 years old, I remember walking to the local market with my father, my small hand securely wrapped into his. We bumped into an acquaintance of his. After some casual conversation, the man, with a tone of extreme pity, asked my father, "Oh, so you have just 2 girls?" He looked almost mournful, as if sympathizing with a great loss. My father interjected, "They're like my sons," he said. I was too young to fully grasp why this exchange left a deep imprint in my memory, but it did. But was it a coincidence that I chose to keep my hair really short and took pride when someone looked at my picture and said that I looked just like a boy? No, it was not a coincidence. Nothing is a coincidence in this life. Everything is action and reaction. I was reacting to the expectation that I would be no less than a boy if I also looked like a boy. Now imagine if that day my father had said something different, anything but without the word son in it. I would have grown up without the burden of trying to deny my femininity, to fit into this patriarchal idea of measuring the worth of daughters in terms of a son. My father didn't know any better, but looking back now, I see how such words shape us. We grow up thinking we have to be like a boy to be valued. From the little girl in the market, unsure about her place in the world, to standing here before you today, I have learned to embrace my difference as my strength. As I stand here today, I want to urge everyone present in this room to discard the old idea that accepting our differences or our differential needs means we are weak or not good enough. Because that's what they want us to believe. So they don't have to accommodate us. So they don't have to share the control of the resources with us. So that we can be pushed out of spaces that we struggle to create for ourselves. We have to understand and assert our unique needs in healthcare, career development, education, and social support, because they are not just valid but essential for true equity. When we embrace and vocalize these needs, we challenge the outdated one-size-fits-all solutions. We then force a re-evaluation of these structures and the policies that, while gender neutral in name, often fails to address our lived experiences. Make no mistake, we are no longer just asking for a seat at the traditional table of power. Instead, we are trying to shape a new world where merit and ability define one's seat at the table, not our gender or some outdated caveman entitlements. A woman's success will no longer be measured by how well she fits into a man's shoes, but by how confidently she walks in her own. Walk along with us, or step aside, please, and be strong like a woman. Thank you.